Hello, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Agyapong, and you are welcome to the 2 Television and then Oman 107.1 FM. Today is a special program. That's why I'm here. We are happy to have in our midst a special guest in the person of Dennis Johnson, who is the CEO and National President of National Association for the Advancement of Colored People in the United States of America. And then the first question that certainly we have to ask is, who are the colored people? Mr. Johnson, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Akwaba.
Yeah.
I want you to respond. Akwaba. How long have you been in Ghana?
I've been here since last Sunday.
Last Sunday?
Yeah, so 9 days. Yeah.
Last Sunday, 9 days?
9 days.
So that means you're supposed to be able to respond to Akwaba.
I am.
Akwaba means welcome.
Yes, it does.
So just say yes.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Right. How far with the Ghanaian hospitality?
It's been extraordinary. We've been here 9 days. I'm a little sleep deprived, but I love the country. We've gone from Accra to Cape Coast. We've experienced much, met with the Minister of Tourism. It has been an outstanding visit for us.
Wow, I see. So NAACP, the C stands for colored people. Who are the colored people?
Well, in the United States, race is a social construct, and from its founding, they tried to create otherness. And what has happened over time, we were founded 113 years ago. And so many of the people we even consider white today were considered non-white. And for Africans in the United States, the legal name that we went under was colored. But there were many people who was put under that category. And so over time, as we've progressed, we've retained the name of NAACP. We're commonly known by the acronyms that more so than the actual words. So colored people could be African of descent, it could be Latin Americans, it could be many individuals who are non-white.
Who are non-white?
Non-white.
Like the Asians?
Asians in some ways are considered colored under the current definition of colored people, non-whites.
Oh, that's the current definition of colored people.
That's correct.
But when you were forming in the 19s, why did you use colored?
It was part of the definition to define segments of population that was not white.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so what were the challenges that you were facing that motivated you people to form an association to liberate yourself in terms of inequality and rights and all sorts of things? Why did you come together?
It was because the United States operated essentially an apartheid system to exploit people for free and then cheap labor. And so Africans in the United States came together to resist and fight against it. And in many ways, we were successful on many levels as we continued to progress. In fact, from our founding in 1909, because of some of our success, we began to work with South Africans to help form the ANC because of some of the things that was taking place in South Africa. We also work with many other African leaders all through history, the decades that we have existed.
Okay, so specifically, which were some of the inequalities that people of color were facing during that time that you had to come together, rally support, engage in activism, so that you could, somebody would say, level the playing ground?
Well, the Supreme Court ruled sometime before our creation that blacks had no rights that whites were bound to uphold. Okay. So we had no rights at all.
Rights like what?
Like everything from being provided quality education to get jobs, to negotiate for wages, housing discrimination, everything, anything you can imagine. If you know the history of South African apartheid, that was the reality for Africans in America.
Okay. So people of color were discriminated against in terms of having job opportunities as against, in quotes, whites?
It was about job opportunities, it was about providing health care, it was about housing discrimination, education, everything in terms that which would define one's quality of life. And so we had to fight to ensure we were being provided opportunities to increase our quality of life.
Okay, so in terms of health care or health delivery that people of color were being discriminated against, how was it affecting people of color?
Everything. It was denial of health care. It was the quality of the care that was being received. It was a mission to medical schools and to ensure we have more black doctors and more nurses. It was in all of the healthcare delivery system. African Americans now have a GDP that's higher than Canada. we generate that much revenue now. We only get there because we fought for equal protection under the law and to ensure that we can elevate the quality of life of descendants of the African community who lives in America.
Okay, so during the formative stages of Naacp, what were some of the activism tools that you used to successfully prosecute one of your agendas?
Well, in a democracy, in America, a governance system is a democracy. The vote is the currency. So one of the very things we did was to fight to ensure that we will have equal access to cast our ballots so we can have people to represent our interests, our needs, and for the improvement of our community. Secondly, the very first fight we took on was to prevent terrorism in our community because lynching was taking place and no one was held accountable. So we embarked on an effort to put in place anti-lynching legislation, but more importantly, have federal government to go to local areas to investigate, prosecute, and convict those who were involved with lynching. And then thirdly, the images we see on television and on the screens, we begin to advocate to make sure that those images better reflect the diversity and the dynamic quality of who we are as African people in America, because those images would dictate how we will be treated in public policy.
Oh, I see. So when you talk about lynching, was it in quotes white people lynching people of color?
Yes.
Really? What was the statistic like?
Well, it was, and first of all, we don't refer to us as people of color now. We're black or we're African in America. Secondly, it would look like they would go in and burn down neighborhoods or communities or businesses. They would go in and identify someone and put them in a public square and string them up and actually hang them by a noose. It would be shooting up churches or burning churches. It was all the things to try to keep some type of order under a level of domestic violence. And many of us began to fight back, particularly during that period of time, using the arms of the law, but some people fought back in other ways as well.
Okay, so 100 years ago, democracy wasn't that really entrenched as compared to today. What were some of the major challenges that you were facing when you were trying to fight for equal rights and equality? What were some of the challenges that you were facing from the establishment?
Well, the resistance is around power. Power don't concede without a counterweight of power. And so NAACP, under the confines of our Constitution and through the democratic practices, we push to make sure that power is distributed equitably. But many individuals would try to block our ability to cast our ballots. Many individuals would try to deny accurate education in our schools to train our young people. Many individuals would try to prevent us from obtaining quality health care. Those are some of many things that people do. Understanding that even on this continent, this country, there has been denial from corporate interests who've come here and suffocated the ability and the potential of Ghana. If you look at the major industries here, you have global companies here preventing Ghanaians from owning major concerns, whether it's in steel or concrete. So it impedes the development of Ghana or any country in Africa. The continent of Africa potential is much greater than what is realized because all the natural resources are here. That what you face here, we face in the United States.
Okay. Oh, I see. So when you were forming, probably that time, there wasn't a lot of independent African states 100 years ago. And so most African states had independence over the past 50 years. Did you get enough support from African continent people?
Well, in fact, it was African Americans who helped African states get independence. Nkrumah came to the United States, studied at Lincoln with one of our lead attorneys, and he learned many of the democratic principles to help Ghana gain independence. Patrice Lumumba came to the United States and worked with Malcolm X and Martin Luther King.
Patrice Lumumba, right?
Patrice Lumumba did. Julius Nyerere came from Tanzania. We advocated hard to have Mandela free because of the NAACP and our advocacy and our leverage in the United States. We helped many African nations gain their independence.
Okay, so what about W.E.B. Du Bois?
W.E.B. Du Bois, he was one of our founders who ultimately moved to Ghana because he was a thought leader around the concept of Pan-Africanism. He understood that Africans across the diaspora must stand in unison because if they attack one of one of us, they're attacking all of us because they use the concept of race, which is a social construct, to exploit us for cheap labor, free labor, or exploit the minerals that we have here on this continent.
Okay, so have you been to the Du Bois Center?
Absolutely, several times.
Right. What did you see over there? Were you impressed?
I was impressed, but I'm also concerned. The quality of the center, the preservation of his works. I'm worried about the deterioration.
You're worried about it?
Absolutely.
I see. So what do you intend doing?
Well, I have been speaking with officials here as well as talking to people in the United States because we have to get climate control for those artifacts. When you cannot have books that's as old as the papers from Du Bois without climate control. And so that has been an ongoing conversation and concern because it is an international global treasure for African descendants. And in fact, Ghana has prospered much from the recent tourism. It would be absolutely essential for this country to see that spot as a tourist destination because people will come around from around the globe to come visit that center, which brings more dollars to this economy to support the local vendors that's across this country.
Yes, certainly we are going to come back to tourism, the tourism potential in Ghana. But I want to find out, what are the, you rightly said that racism is social construct. What are the modern day challenges facing a Black American in America?
I think it is much of the same around for Africans across the diaspora. It is the attainment and the ability to improve one's quality of life, wherever that exists. So if you talk about African Americans, it's making sure that there's equity in the allocations of opportunities, whether it's job opportunity or entrepreneurship, building a business, educating our young people, quality of health care, and all of the things that involve. When you talk about the African diaspora, you're also talking about the ability to control one's resources, leverage those resources for the community whole, access to quality education, innovation. It is not only an African American issue here, it is an African diaspora opportunity that we should be pursuing.
Okay, so what is the level of relationship between your association and other Black Americans who are not members of your association?
We represent all African Americans in the country. Some join, support, others don't. But when there's an issue in our country, 90% of people call upon us to show up to support that issue, whether it's police brutality or entrepreneur opportunities. We are the largest and the oldest organization to represent Black America in the country, and we will continue to represent all Black Americans because it's important that when there's an African in distress, we must come up with a systemic approach to support that African, because if we don't, we will all be in distress.
So when Floyd was brutally murdered by the police officer, what was the position of Naacp?
The protest in the street, that was led by our local leaders. Okay. The protests that broke out the country, a good number of them was organized and or supported by our leaders across the country. We are the only organization with the type of footprint and communities in the African American community outside of the Black church. Okay. That's really important. And with Floyd, when it happened, we were the lead organization for police reform to prevent that from happening. That will be legislation that we will get passed. But in the meantime, we was able to get the president to sign an executive order to prevent that from happening within the bounds of the executive powers.
Is it a major concern for your association, the level of violence within Black communities in America?
We should never fall into that narrative. That's a white man's narrative about who we are. Okay. Black on Black violence is about relationship and community. Yeah. That when there's an incident that happened here in Ghana, 98% of the time it'll be a Ghanaian Black against Ghanaian Black. Why? Because they live in close proximity. They are in relationship. They're family members. And so what has happened through propaganda, they push this notion of Black on Black crime, when in fact it is as much white on white crime because they live in community with one another. They're in relationship with one another, or Asian on Asian crime. So we should never, whether we're in the United States or on the continent, repeat that, because what it is propaganda to divide us, not put us together.
Well, but I take away the level of propaganda projected by media or whatever. It's not a concern to you.
Well, repeat that again.
What I said was that the fact that propaganda plays a role, okay, in propelling that notion that black on black violence is on the increase? Are you not concerned that indeed it's a reality?
I'm concerned with the increase in violence and the root causes of it.
Yes.
And what we're seeing as the root causes is a mental health crisis in the back end of the COVID epidemic, where people were isolated, and we have not addressed some of the mental health issues. It is just like saying that the violence has taken place, and you name the country in Africa, is a problem. It's a problem we should be concerned about, but we should not allow a narrative of propaganda to dominate what's possible as we look for solutions.
Right. So just give me a minute. This is Oman FM, this is Naacp Television. This is a local media house. We use a local language. So 98% of our listeners want to listen to what you are saying. So I want to translate to them whatever we just said. So I have to use my local language a bit. So pardon me. I was for Naacp Television Oman FM now. Kencity Media Mene Penny4 na CEO National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, if US for na by friend Derrick Johnson, or the CEO and the national president. Na and common ye din na say America, you name Miss America for you for America to for more America, you know some black Americans and no na and near my na or muta facing better say so the Libya na police nibi na wakum bibini bi e wo hono mo tete no be 100 years ago we bibini ko pa na ma won to aba na wuntimi ponye adwuma anye wo pese wo tan dem ko pa na e de ma e na wo yare pra ko hospital ko bo so na issue and until na ye na nanom that time more than 100 years ago no omo e ka mo hu bo mo se e wo so mutimbo abo mo ho na how be ba African Americans go through our American obetimi esiano na omudi enyeden ene ye nti ene wona adu no so the national president eno ma Ghana say yebedi enkomonti eno ho nkomo no ena yedie no Derrick so why Ghana? Why you in Ghana? I'm told you're leading about a 40-man delegation or something. Why you in Ghana?
I think Ghana is an important country on the continent of Africa.
Okay.
In 2018, right after I took the position, we are NGO to United Nations. We invited ambassadors and delegations from the African and Caribbean community when they convened at the UN in New York. In that conversation, the Minister of Tourism at the time asked if we would support the Year of the Return, and we agreed to do so. We were also looking at the possibility of hosting a major television show here called Image Awards Africa. We have it in the United States. It's the largest award show in the entertainment industry. And so out of that, we brought the largest delegation to Ghana in 2019 with just under 300 people for the Year of the Return. Ghana is significant because in West Africa, it is the place where many individuals of African descent left these lands, our ancestors left this land to go to the Caribbean, go to Brazil, and also America. So it is important. I think between Ghana and Tanzania, right now, they're the two most significant countries on the continent as we continue to pursue, strengthen our relationship on the continent.
Oh, I see. So basically, what are you doing in Ghana now?
Right now, we have about 92 people that's traveling with us for a fellowship program of about 43 college-age students. It is important for them to understand the history of the continent, the transatlantic trade that involved our ancestors, and how we must be Pan-Africanists in our view, because how Africans are treated anywhere is how Africans could be treated where we are or anywhere across the board. The African diaspora, in the thinking of W.D. Du Bois, is important for us to connect and unite and not allow others to divide us.
Oh, I see. So since your arrival, where have you been going to?
Well, we have had, we just got back from Cape Coast.
Okay.
We spent several days there so that those students can experience the history. We've also been around here in Accra. Our last trip we went to Kumasi. We didn't make it to Kumasi this time. When we come back next year, hopefully we will get a chance to also visit Kumasi.
You couldn't go to Kumasi?
Not on this trip. We went the last trip, but not this trip.
Wow. When are you leaving?
We are leaving on tomorrow.
Tomorrow?
Yes.
We should have held this program in Kumasi today. Because you can't go back to America without the history of Kumasi. Oh,
we've had the history of Kumasi. We just didn't do it on this trip.
Okay. So when you are back in the U.S., what kind of stories do you hear about Ghana?
Well,
that will motivate you to say, let me go back, let me go to Ghana and see what's happening.
Well, it's less about the stories we hear, it's more about the narrative that we take back. And I think that's why we're here, so that we can learn firsthand about the possibilities of a country like Ghana and the potential of uniting Africans across the Atlantic Ocean. That's really important. There are a lot of Ghanaians who live in the United States, and they're great ambassadors for this country. And it's important for Africans who live in America to also amplify what's possible in Ghana. You think about the GDP of African Americans.
Yes.
That spending power can help propel Ghana to be stronger. And we want more terrorism in this country like we want more terrorism across the continent of Africa. And if we have that strength of buying power that's greater than Canada, then there needs to be stronger relationships between African Americans and all of the African countries.
Well, all right. So let me take you back to 2018 when you mentioned that return to year of return.
2019 year of return.
2019 year of return. How did you hear about it?
Well, we had a reception for many ambassadors at the UN, a convening in New York in 2018. The Minister of Tourism at the time shared it, the concept with us, asked us to partner. We agreed. We came over, did a preliminary visit. We thought it was an important benchmark in the history of African people, but more so a great potential for the country of Ghana.
Okay, and did you play a role after just having that discussion with them, after hearing about it, when it indeed during Christmas, December of 2019?
No, we not only played a role, we had the largest delegation of people from America to come here. We had just under 300 people in our delegation alone to travel here to Ghana for the year return.
Really? What were some of the stories that he told you?
What story? I didn't understand.
The kind of stories that they told you after coming for the year of return.
They love the experience, the cultural understanding and the connection. That's absolutely important. That's why we're back now with 90 people. It is important for this country to further develop tourism, because the potential revenue from that can be tremendous to the economy of this country.
Yes. Talking about tourism, let's discuss it thoroughly. Apart from the fact that Black Americans can come to Ghana, attempt to trace their roots, and then know their heritage and say that, yes, I'm a Ghanaian, even though I've never been to Ghana before, but if I check my DNA, if I test my DNA, I'm a Ghanaian. Besides that, what are the other tourist potentials?
So many people come here not to say, yes, I'm a Ghanaian. They say, we're Africans, because we understand the trade really diluted our identity. But we know we're from the continent, and many of them will do the DNA test. And for me, for example, I'm Nigerian by ancestor, and my colleagues are from Cameroon or many countries. But what happens in that process, it allows for a new connection.
Okay.
It allows for a cultural exchange. And for the economy here, it helps build and support, because many of the local vendors benefit from our travel here as we close the gap of understanding and communications between African Americans and Africans on the continent and the many countries that exist.
Okay, so if you want to do your DNA to know that you are an African, but you want to know which country specifically that you are from, how does it happen?
Well, we have a company in the U.S. that's African Ancestry, and we work with African Ancestry that has the largest database of DNA on the continent. So we don't only learn which country we're from, we learn which tribal community that our ancestors were a part of. So whether it's the Kanari people in Nigeria, which I'm a part of, or Yoruba in Nigeria, or you name it, or Fulani or Maasai. That is the purpose, so we understand what that connection is. And many of the participants, they may go and meet and open up relationships with those tribal communities, which is absolutely important.
Okay, so after the question, what somebody want to ask is, well, you are Black African, you are Black American, you are a Ghanaian, and so what? What happens after that?
It's important for both sides that if we don't have relationships, you are subject to be attacked in ways that you cannot prevent yourself. We don't have relationships, we cannot maximize the potential that we bring to the table. And so when you close the gap, we can start talking about what the opportunities are, as opposed to defending against negative reactions. Understanding Nelson Mandela would not have been freed when he was free, but for African Americans and the NAACP.
Okay.
He would have died in prison.
Okay.
Understanding that many Ghanaians who were educated in America was able to bring back those skills to this country to help build the country, including Nkrumah. And he was educated at a historically black college that we built and created for the benefit of African Americans and the African diaspora. That's the importance of the understanding the trade, the building of the relationship, and deepening the cultural connection. So because we are one people, therefore we need to have one aim as we push for one destiny. And that destiny is to be able to be self-governed, self-sufficient, and not dependent on outside forces who will not and have proven not to have our best interests at heart.
All right, Abusa for inti ahano hey Oman enkoso na yefem God na Sarbedia konmene opene fe no Derrick Johnson on ye CEO and the national president ma Naacp wa America and ye di enkomo no two television and Oman 107.1 FM na koba ye di ne ko ba bia na ye fe di DNA na se bia matika kra eya na ye nuan momwa amanwane wo ye tuntum bibini wase wo hwe no ho na so ye tuntum ntino wo ye African na o makwa bi fe di DNA test say wo ye African no kra na African no kro be so no fra na o man be so no free wotin be hwe yes say wo ye nzimani sa wo ye nzimani dia and wo Ghana ni yes wo ye nzimani into what apart so wo Ghana ni no e say tibi chire mo so wo ye nzimani anas wo ye hantani anas wo ye ngranas wo ye asantini DNA test ni etimi prove and me busa ne say na we kwa DNA test hu say we Ghana ni ba we black American na hu we ba na ayede no ono so say wunya sa de na hu say we black African but to be hwe no say Ghana ni wo sa hwe no we nzimani a emma wutimi ni Ghana enkabomu bakase because I feel don't say be honoma etime establish say we Ghana ni anase we asantini anase we krobona anase we agbeni ye no etime boa enti no ho nkomo na ye die no so just what is the level of collaboration between your association and the African governments?
It's very good. I mean, I'm excited to be here in Ghana.
Yes.
That's a beautiful thing. I'm only here because of the Ghanaian government.
Okay.
We have ongoing relationship with Mozambique. We have relationships with South Africa. We have relationship with Tanzania. We have a relationship with several African countries. We will have a reception when the UN convene because it's important that we all stay in ongoing communication because the future for Africans is much more positive than the past.
Okay.
And we need to stay focused on that.
The future of African is much more positive.
Much more. Because our potential is much greater. Our knowledge is much more. Our ability to connect quicker has been enhanced. The ability for us to leverage our capital, our monies, towards a mutually beneficial good is greater. That's important. And if we only focus on what the past and the negative, we get the past and the negative for our future. But if we start building towards what the opportunity is, then we get a new day. And we're working towards a new day. Ghana needs a new day. African Americans need a new day. And that new day is inclusive of being more prosperous, a better quality of life, so that our children and our children's children can be in positions where they control their destiny, and that as opposed to their destiny being controlled by outside forces.
All right, so I think when we were all growing up, we were hearing of the American dream, the American dream. If I was born in Ghana, but I wasn't born in America, how was I supposed to have that inculcated in me that there's something called the American dream? You just said, there must be a new day in Ghana. If my child comes tomorrow, what kind of orientation should I give to that child that the outlook ahead is positive? What kind of orientation should, as a parent, give to my child?
You should give any child that they can do whatever they desire to do. They must stay strong in their identity. They must cast big dreams, not small concepts. And that their talents, their skills should benefit the whole, because if they do that effectively, individually, they will be a better person. They can achieve more. We should always strive for excellence. And what we should coach our children to be is to strive for excellence.
Let's talk about arts and culture. Okay, if you watch a lot of American movies, hardly will you see a parent, a father, leave his child in the hands of a terrorist, whatever he has to do, he will go and rescue his child. For me, it tells a certain story. Americans in American movies are always fighting or they're at war with different countries and they always prevail. It means Americans are using their movies to tell a story. How should the African, the Ghanaian, how should we also use our movie industry to portray the opportunities and the future of Africa or Ghana in particular?
Well, how we are seeing, whether Ghanaian, South African, or African Americans on the screen is how we're treated in the public, in public policy. So that's a challenge for us to start producing more of our own movies. Start defining what is possible so that you can breathe a level of confidence and assurance that we are part of the future. And so for NAACP, we created the Image Award so we can celebrate the positive images of who we are, not only as African Americans, but in the diaspora, in ways where we can promote it. I traveled to South Africa with Danny Glover.
Danny Glover,
When we got off the plane in South Africa, when people recognized who he was, they descended upon them. And I was like, Danny, why are you so popular here? He said it was Lethal Weapon 3. Because in Lethal Weapon 3, the villain was the white apartheid South Africans. And Danny Glover defeated them.
Oh, okay.
And the black South Africans celebrate him because of that portrayal. That example alone lets you know that how people see themselves on the screen really define their self-confidence, what they see as possible, and their inclusion in terms of their identity on the victorious side. For Ghanaians, you have to produce content that show Ghana and the Ghanaian people as victors, to celebrate culture, to promote what's possible so our young people can not only hear from their parents what's possible, they can see their images on screen. And we must do that across the diaspora.
Oh, I see. So if you listen to, let's say, metal music, they use the F words a lot. In Ghana, for instance, now, a lot of our musicians are also into music using the F words. When you complain, when you draw their attention to the fact that this is not good, it's not wholesome for the consumption of the younger generation, they tell you, oh, go to America, that's what they are singing, that's what they are doing. What kind of advice do you have for budding talents that these things, even though it is done in the US, we don't still like it?
Well, it's not about what we do in the U.S. We have to define our culture. We have bad music in the U.S. We have bad music in Nigeria. We have bad music in Kenya. We have bad music in Ghana. And so there's an education component we need to our young people, so when they use their skills, their talent as musicians, they don't fall prey to that. And many musicians in America are now realizing the harm they're causing, and I hope musicians here and in Nigeria and Kenya are also recognizing the harm that's been caused when they use lyrics that demean women or demean our culture, calling it culture, because that's not culture, that's destruction of our culture.
Oh, I see. So, so the media space is a major tool to define who we are.
All of it is. If you create music, it's an expression of our culture because you are part of the culture. And if our young people or anyone get attracted to that music, it helps define what the culture is and what it's going to be in the future. It is our job, me, you, and all of us, to try to help young people who are so talented in the arts and music not to fall prey to the easy lyrics that demean our culture. We have to build our culture.
Well, someone says blacks were used for medical experiments. Is it a fact?
Oh, blacks have been used for medical experiments on the continent, in Ghana, in Tanzania, in the United States. The pharmaceutical industry tests on animals and people. And if countries don't have laws to restrict the testing on people, individuals who are least able to protect themselves end up become a part of experiments. And you see it around the globe. We see stuff here that's not acceptable in the US because pharmaceutical companies come to the continent and push products that's not healthy because they're trying to test it to put it in markets like in Europe or in the United States.
Can you start an example, maybe to help the discussion?
The chemicals that's put in products.
Okay, the chemicals that are put in the product. Okay, let's say paracetamol, it comes with other chemicals.
That's right.
So maybe one of those chemicals that make up paracetamol are not acceptable in
the chemicals put in product, what happens, if they get banned in one country, they come to countries that don't have any laws to ban it, and they still put it in those products, and then you see increases in cancer and other things of that nature. The cancer treatment may not be allowed in one country, but they go to another country and start experimental treatments that would not pass muster to be deployed in London or in the United States.
But how do we fight that thing? Because I don't know whether it's out of ignorance, because we don't know. That's why we are unable to fight. If you don't know something, you can't fight against it.
Well, it goes back to what I said earlier. It's important for people to be educated, and what was created in the United States with HBCUs is one of those pipelines for people to be educated, or in London, so that when we come back to our communities in the U.S. or we come back to Ghana or any other country on the continent, we bring back those skills and expertise, so that we can protect our communities from those type of experiments or bad products that's in the stream.
So, but how often do you draw the attention of various governments that maybe a drug is being sent to your country, but we think that the components are inimical to your health? Do you draw the attention of members?
Well, in the United States, we sue the company.
Yes.
We sue the company.
Okay.
Right? We just settled a $20 million suit against a company. In this country, your parliament and your scientists must put up the walls so that those companies are not coming here, dumping bad products here. That you must research and understand what the trends are in any country that has barred these products so they don't leave those countries and come here. We was a part of the suit around tobacco. That's why fewer people are smoking in the United States than they were 20 years ago because of the high cancer. We just worked with the administration to ban the flavoring of cigarettes because it was targeting our community, causing more cancer. But then when you go to other countries, you see cigarette smoke is up. So you have to collectively trade information, stay in contact, because the power of our protection is on us to protect ourselves, not an outside force, because companies and entities are seeking to maximize profit and dispose of people.
All right, so if you want to, all these things come out of result of activism. If you want to engage in activism, like what you people do in the US, how should you conscientize yourself?
Well, so how we deal with activism in the United States may or may not be consistent with how you deal with activism in Ghana and any other country, because the laws are different, the cultures are different, how things move different. What we have done in the United States as an organization, we have 113 years of experience to know how to move policy, how to file lawsuits and win in the court, and how to organize people to prevent them, to stop them from buying product to run companies out of business. But that may or may not work in another country. So it is incumbent upon the leaders of the country to define what activism looks like, what role it plays in decision-making, and how to protect the communities that we come from.
Okay, so how often do you encourage Black community, the business community in the US, that there are business opportunities in Ghana, and so they must come back to Ghana to invest? Do you do that frequently?
Well, I do it as much as Ghanaians are able to receive those businesses and figure out what the partnership could look like that is mutually beneficial. I don't encourage the companies to come here because you don't want a company to come here to exploit the people of Ghana and exploit the wealth. But if there are mutual opportunities where African-American business and a Ghanaian business can partner, yes, I think that's important. In 2019, when we brought close to 300 people here, we had a whole 3-day business conversation with Ghanaian businesses and African-American companies who met for 3 days to talk about what joint ventures and partnerships should look like. But it's a two-way street. What can Ghana export to the United States as much as what can the United States, African-Americans, bring to Ghana? It's a two-way street, not a one-way street.
I see. Yes, it certainly is a two-way street. Someone just sent me a text message. It says, so how can the African or Ghanaian, for that matter, help the Black Americans fight against injustice in the U.S., as has been witnessed recently in some Black deaths at the hands of the police?
Well, I don't know how Ghanaians can assist, because Activism United States is based on those set of laws, rules, and customs. And so we have to take that fight on. What we can do jointly is begin and prepare for what future opportunities exist. How do you build a business development so young people would not be languishing in the street in any country, because there are opportunities for them to fully engage and participate?
I remember when Floyd died, and there was a funeral held in Ghana. I think the president even attended the funeral. A lot of people took the government to the cleaners. That why should a Black American be killed in the United States of America, and that the Ghanaian government would decide to hold a vigil over his death?
It's called solidarity.
It's called solidarity.
It's called solidarity. Yeah. If you have an issue here, and if it's international in scope or there's a need, we should stand for you as well, because it's a two-way street. What took place in the fight for independence of African nations from early 1950 through the 70s was not isolated to those countries, whether it was in Nigeria or wherever. It was a global fight that enlisted many individuals to support those countries in many ways to ensure independence. And so if we operate in isolationism, what we get is more harm. But if we operate globally, what we get is more opportunity.
Abusafo nti yeda so ewo Oman enko so na yedi enkomo na question ba kwa bigusa ni sia na sambe ya bibini bi we bruni wa America na police for to share the so what say wodi ni see from wodi the kotodwi emia ne konwa to say abrante no ewuye na efe ne Floyd na sambe ya abrante no wuye no Ghana ban eye kura mpo ewo ho kakra ewo ha ma yakokasa kakra wa ase enipa bebre ka say aden na bibini bi o wa America wawuo na o mampanyin na ban no kokasa ye kwakoye eye na se ba ko no wonye Ghana ni etifa so wo ho ne se ana mebusa Mr. Johnson was so ye no na chese onuado ewo yemu, because even though omo ye Black Americans omo cha American omo ye Africans and no makakotsa ho no enti no say e kan wani a say kan e kan wani a na ka woto disa enete e doka say independence time if any apartheid system South Africa e be nyina no na America for e ka ho Black Americans e wo no mo ka ho no mo support ye nkroma obobo Patrice Lumumba mu nyina di say o mu nyina e ko abuche kusua ade e wa American universities na mo ba no so mo di nimdia so ba Ghana e ba Africa e ma eti be ko enya ye fa hodie this is ABC US and the US na aba be ba ko enti me nka say esi America obi ma so nti no ye de emfire ho ye no nti na wode aba be kasa se me ebusafo nti ye koso na ye di enkombo. So what are you taking back to US tomorrow? Is it your first of coming to Ghana?
No, it's not. I just shared I was here in 2019.
For the years.
Right, this is my 4th time here. A lot of knowledge, new relationships, and potential opportunities moving forward. My mission here is to strengthen the relationship with Ghanaians, identify opportunities that we can cross-pollinate and work on together, and identify business opportunities wherever they may exist. And so when I go back, I would evaluate all the conversations and people I've met and figure out what the next step should be.
Oh, I see. In terms of moving Ghana, in terms of moving Africa forward, if I'm giving you the opportunity to mention 2 or 3 things that you think can turn things around within the next 10 years, what are the things that you would enumerate?
First thing, control what you control. If you control resources, don't sign them away to a foreign nation. Secondly, invest in your people, because your people is your greatest potential, so we must accelerate learning in the country.
Education, okay.
Right, learning in this country, and because of virtual learning, we can educate more people faster.
Yeah.
And then thirdly, don't think locally, think globally. Because the economy is not a local economy, it's a global economy. And when Africans think globally, when the African diaspora think globally, we are stronger as a result.
Okay, so in terms of learning, there were two main challenges militating against education in Ghana. First of all, access in terms of infrastructure, access in terms of having the capacity to afford your school fees so that you can be admitted and continue schooling. The current government has instituted something called free SH. I don't know whether you might have heard of it. Free SH is where students are enrolled in school free of charge, and that the government takes care of their fees, including their food and accommodation. How do you rate it? Is it going to accelerate our development to a certain level?
Well, again, I don't know the current political landscape, but invest in your future. You invest in your future by making more accessible education. In the United States, education is free from K through 12th grade. It is free. All of the leading nations, education is free. And that's absolutely important, because if you invest in your people, you invest in the future. But more importantly, it's more accessible now than ever before because of devices like this.
Yes.
And everywhere in this country I have gone, I've seen almost everybody with a device.
Yes.
And on this device, there's all type of virtual learning.
Yes.
Invest in your future, and you're a stronger country. You'll be a stronger country as a result. So free education is a good thing.
Okay. So when you go back to, when you go back to US, what are the first two things that you are going to tell your people that I was in Ghana in 2019, I've been to Ghana 2022? Maybe there's a difference. These are the things that we can do to improve. What are you going to tell your people?
I have to assess this trip. I have been working with Ghanaians from the first time I got here in 2018.
Yes.
It's an ongoing relationship building and dialogue. I've run across many individuals now that I'll be following up with. So it's not about what I'm going to tell my people, it's about what we're going to do.
Yes.
It's the doing, not the saying, and the doing is remain to be seen.
All right, so that's what he just said. The doing is the most important thing, it's not what you're going to say. So, ladies and gentlemen, I've just had the opportunity to have a discussion. It wasn't an interview. We had a discussion. Oh, yes, it wasn't an interview, it was a discussion with the CEO and then the national president of National Association, that's Naacp of US. Your last word for Ghanaians and Africans.
Well, I'm excited to be here. I think this is, Ghana, it has the greatest potential on the continent of Africa. It is really important to invest in sites for tourism, because if you invest in sites for tourism, you increase the possibility of bringing more revenue into the country so the country can continue to prosper and grow. So I'm excited to be here, and I look forward to come back many more times.
Have you heard of Afrochella?
Yes.
What is it?
It is a music festival of African artists.
So have you
heard of Coachella?
Are we seeing you in December?
Well, you may or may not. Let's see.
We have to see you.
Hey, that remains to be seen.
All right. I was afraid to me that is supposed to meet him join the FM God Nasarbedia Kumene, right? Derrick Johnson, 1 year Naacp president and CEO when he be the Ekobon. Yamia Duma, next week so the Nepacho, Uncle Bubesa Genesis, ne do special assignment. Pacho, Ibisha Dache, Medasi. Bye bye.